Well, hello everyone, welcome to another very exciting episode right here on the MIgardener channel. So a lot of you have asked for a garden update, and I figured, you know what, I haven't done a garden update ever since we planted the garden. So what I want to do today is I want to get a garden update up there for you so you can see what we're growing and how the plants are growing in the beginning of June. So we were a little bit late to the party this year. We had a very cold winter, a very long winter, and then also we had many distractions that came into play, and it just was not a very normal year. But I am very pleased to say that, as you can see, the garden is growing so well. It is off to the races, and you know what? We're right in there, and I hardly even notice a difference now that the plants are in the ground. Before I got the plants in the ground, I definitely noticed a difference because all my neighbors, even that are usually later than I am, they already had their gardens in. So, so I definitely noticed in the beginning, but now that we have them in a beautiful, nutrient-rich soil, out in the sun, in our garden, they're doing great. And we're right back in it. So let's check out what's growing on. So we're still getting tons and tons of lettuce. Our lettuce is very beautiful. It is beginning to start to go to seed. We have to get our second crop in here. We're going to be taking this out in the next few days, as we've taken out most of our lettuce here and most of our spinach, but we are still harvesting from this because the lettuce has not gone bitter, it's not gotten milky, and in this high density method, the soil is kept cool because the plants are shading out the soil, meaning that they can grow a lot longer. And that is why I love this method. So our tango lettuce is just looking beautiful. Everyone loves that. And then also we got just absolutely gorgeous red sales lettuce. And that, you can't get any better than that. So those are just doing wonderful. I mean, look at those leaves. Look at that. Absolutely some of the prettiest lettuce that you could possibly grow. And this bed here, this bed is actually our bean bed. It looks bare, but there's probably close to 150 bean seeds planted in here, meaning that in a couple weeks, this whole thing is just gonna be lush and growing with beans. But they do take a little while to sprout, especially when the rain has been so intermittent. So we're coming in here and still supplemental watering because all the cores in our beds are down about 8 inches, meaning that the seeds cannot access that moisture yet. So the top surface of the soil needs to be watered to add that moisture that's not available. And we've had a real dry spring, so they're taking a little while longer to sprout, but they'll be up, like I said, in about a week, and they'll be just growing like crazy. Beans are very fast growing. As for our little home orchard, it's doing really well. We have our apple tree here that's loaded up with apples. Our other one is also loaded up with apples. And our pear tree behind us, check out the pears. They're doing really well. So this pear tree is really just taken off. It is absolutely exploding with growth this year. And you can see we've got pears, we've got more pears, we've even got even more pears. So this tree is just doing so well. It's putting on so much new growth. All this growth here is new. It's grown about a foot this year already. And like I said, it is off to the races. So really happy with that. Our 2 strawberry beds are just rocking and rolling. We already harvested one of our very first strawberries of the season. We posted a picture of her on Facebook of us harvesting that, but they're loaded up. These were actually started from runners from last year, and a lot of them are already fruiting. They're doing wonderful. Look at the size of those leaves. That is what Trifecta does in the soil, folks. That is just an absolutely healthy plant. I mean, man, oh man, those are some of the biggest strawberry leaves I've ever seen. And check that out. Look at that. Look at that fruit production. That is just beautiful. Those are huge berries. For first year berries, that is going to be a real nice harvest there. So coming over here, you see just how loaded these plants are. Tons and tons of fruit all over the place. There is easily going to be close to, I'd say, 5 or 10 pounds of strawberries just from this bed alone. And that's a pretty conservative estimate there. I think we might even get a little bit more than that. So I transplanted a few broccoli plants. They were actually growing over in our mulch over there. They reseeded themselves. So I decided I'd move them over here because they were just gonna get mowed over anyways. And so they're doing okay. They're bouncing back. I just did that a few days ago. So they're still under a little bit of transplant shock, but you know, they're gonna perk their leaves up as they grow new roots and get over that transplant shock, and I'm sure they'll do just fine. We also planted some kohlrabi here. And our mignotina, our second favorite salad green of all time, is doing really well. I absolutely love mignotina. And not to mention, look at the garlic. Look at the garlic. The garlic is just absolutely incredible. Look at that. I mean, it is just growing so well. And you can see that some of these plants here, they're going to be pretty thick stalked. And that means the thicker the stalk, the larger the head of garlic. I'm thinking we're going to get a pretty decent harvest of garlic this year. And check that out. Look at that. That's a honking big garlic stalk right there. So I'm definitely excited to get a harvest out of that. The potatoes, they've done really well. They're all exploding in growth. It seems like as soon as they get out of the soil and into the air, they just triple in growth almost overnight, and they really have. So they're doing wonderful. And tomatoes, we've hardly lost even a day of growth. They are right back in it. Like I said, not only are they flowering, they're fruiting all over the place. We got a few first little tomatoes forming. And again, we were so late to the party with our tomatoes. And check this out. I mean, look at this. The fruit set on these is just incredible. And again, when you keep your plants stress-free and you single stem your plants, they're focusing all that energy into fruiting and flowering and upward growth, meaning they're going to be back at it even if you get a late start, and you're going to be right in it. I mean, check this out. Look at this. This is one of the red cherry tomatoes, and look at the clusters on this. It's absolutely going insane. And so these are doing really nice. Our cabbage bed, well, they're doing pretty well. Some of them, they're not doing so great, like that one right there. But the majority, I'd say, thumbs up, especially the Napa cabbage. We're gonna be making some homemade kimchi this year because Cindy and I absolutely love fermented foods. And this Napa cabbage is just taking off like crazy. All the other cabbages, like I said, they're a little slower to the ball game, but they're doing okay. And then the kale, they're coming along. But as you can see, we're at a little bit of insect damage. That usually happens in the beginning of the season, especially when there's not a lot of food growing just yet and things are just starting. But as things start heating up, things start growing faster, the plant growth will far exceed any insect damage, and that's when you get beautiful looking crops. So often people think that everything we put in the garden is free of insect damage. In an organic garden, that's almost impossible to have. But you can see here the scarlet kale, it's doing real well. No insect damage on that. And then the peas, they're doing great too. We actually planted sweet potatoes this year. One of the crops that we've always wanted to plant, but never really had the space. As you can see, sweet potatoes doing real nice. They've about doubled in growth since we put them in the ground. And then the peppers, they're doing great too. We've got 2 of each variety again this year. We planted a lot less peppers because we just grew so many last year. We didn't really know what to do with them all. And we still have some in the freezer from last year. So we kind of dialed back the peppers so we could have some room for some other crops that we're growing. And that's kind of one of the big things that we're trying to do this year, is just allow for more crops and more uniqueness in the garden and grow more stuff that we actually end up eating. The onions that we planted out, they're doing great. Hardly even missing a beat. The ones that we transplanted, they're growing just as well as the ones we planted in the garden initially. And they've hardly, like I said, they've hardly missed a beat. They're growing just as fast. And as you can see, there's one we transplanted and there's one that we moved in the garden. Almost no difference. Awesome. And the corn's already up. And the corn is growing fast. So this was the corn we grew in our corn growing guide. And we are having absolutely terrific germination. This is the ambrosia sweet corn, as you can find it at MIgardener.com. Hopefully we still have some in stock because you are not too late to plant corn. Corn is a very fast grower. You do need about 80 to 85 days, but if you're living in someplace like Michigan, there's still farmers putting in a second crop, and we got nearly 100% germination rate. I'd say close to 95% from this planting here, and that means absolutely we're going to have a very thick mat of corn here, meaning that the pollination is going to be really great, and we're going to have great corn, no doubt. And one of the final things in our garden that I wanted to show was our pumpkins and squash. So we've never had pumpkins or trailing squash in our garden. We have had them up at the cottage garden, and we still do put them up there. The problem is the mice usually get to most of them. And so we're having them here where we can definitely keep a closer eye on them and maintain them as they really do need to do well. And we have a ton of of vining crops here that we're going to just run off the back here by the fence line and grow. We're going to grow giant pumpkins. We're going to grow jack-o'-lanterns. We're also going to grow pie pumpkins, as well as Waltham butternut squash, because those long shelf life crops are really great when you're trying to eat more whole foods in the dead of winter. And so those Waltham butternut squash are definitely a great treat. We use them in everything, and they're delicious. So we're growing a lot of those. And then we also have our perennial hyssop that's grown back, and that's just exploding in growth, doing really nice. I can't wait to see all the beautiful purple flowers on there, because we're going to make some herbal tea with them later on. So that's another episode for another day. But there's the garden update. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, whatever it might have been, but I hope you learned something. That's the aim of these episodes. If not anything, I hope you were inspired to grow a garden or plant some of these crops in your garden. And as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow big or go home. I'll catch you all later. See ya. Bye.